What if the bargain of a lifetime, a cabin for just 12 cents, turned into a nightmare when the rancher opened the door and saw a young Apache girl hanging inside? What happened next shook the entire town, and the truth buried in that cabin's walls will leave you speechless. Stay with me until the very end, because this is not just a Wild West story, it's a story about life, loss, and redemption. The year was 1874. Dust storms rolled across the plains, and hard times hit every rancher in the Dakota Territory. Caleb Rourke, a quiet, rugged rancher in his 40s, had seen his herd cut in half by drought. One morning, he stumbled across a flyer posted on the wall outside the general store. Cabin for sale, 12 cents. Must sell quick. The townsfolk mocked it. 12 cents couldn't buy a shot of whiskey, let alone a home. But Caleb, desperate for any break, walked to the edge of town with his last coins jangling in his pocket. The cabin stood alone against the foothills, dark, weathered wood, windows clouded with dust. A heavy silence hung over it, as if time had forgotten the place. Caleb dropped the coins into the seller's hand and took the rusty iron key. When he pushed open the door, the hinges screamed. The smell of old smoke and damp pine clung to the air. Then Caleb froze. Hanging from the rafters was a young Apache girl. Her long black hair swaying gently, her body towering and strong, yet lifeless. Her feet nearly touched the ground. Caleb's heart pounded. He cut her down, his calloused hands trembling. But then something happened that nearly knocked him off his boots. The girl coughed. She was alive. Her lips moved, whispering in Apache, words Caleb didn't understand. She was bruised, half-starved, and taller than any girl he'd ever seen, nearly his height, built like a warrior. For weeks, Caleb nursed the girl back to health in his ranch house. Her name, she finally whispered, was Ayoka, meaning she brought happiness. But her eyes carried a storm. Slowly, through broken English and gestures, the story emerged. Ayoka's family, part of an Apache band, had been driven off their land by greedy cattle barons and railroad men. She had been captured, mocked for her unusual height and strength, and left to hang in the cabin as a cruel warning. This is what happens to those who resist. The more Caleb listened, the more his heart hardened against the men who ruled the territory with guns and silver. He had lost cattle, friends, and now, by sheer chance, had inherited this broken secret. Word spread in town that the rancher had taken in an Indian girl. Whispers turned to jeers. Men spat on the ground when Caleb walked by. "You'll get yourself killed, Rourke," they warned. "Leave her to rot like the rest of her kind." But Caleb wasn't a man to bend. He saw in Ayoka not a threat, but a fighter, someone whose spirit hadn't been broken even when her body nearly was. And Ayoka saw in him the father she'd lost. One night, as the full moon lit the prairie, riders came thundering toward Caleb's land, men sent by the baron who had ordered Ayoka's death. They demanded he hand her over. Caleb stood. Sometimes, what seems worthless, a cabin for 12 cents, a life left for dead, can turn out to be the greatest treasure of all. And in the Wild West, where greed often ruled, it was courage, loyalty, and love that truly